Hey, you're listening to Profoundish. My name is Alex Duquette. You know my co-host, Weston Hasty. He's going to be joining me, and we're going to be talking about each other's bodies. Yeah, that's right. How do we feel about how we look? How do we feel about what we wear? What would we rate ourselves on a scale from 1 to 10? Or, if talking about bodies isn't what you're into, then let's talk about video game consoles. Later on, Weston and I are going to figure out which video game console is the sexiest. This is Profoundish. Weston, I think we're just gonna hop in because
let's hop in. What are we hopping into? Hopping like a rabbit.
Well, I think we're not gonna hop like a rabbit. I'm never gonna
A
talk
bunny?
about rabbits with you again after that episode. Okay.
You want to talk about Roger Rabbit? How he's the best Thanksgiving guest? He's the best.
You know.
Dinner and a show.
I thought so. Okay, so last week I really liked how he put the profound and profoundish a little bit, and we kind of talked about, just changing some habits and refreshing,
Oh, that's
refreshments. Right. We talked about like restarts, right? We talked about
I
refreshments.
forgot what we talked
orange
about
juice.
last week. So I was like, did we get profound? I don't remember what we talked about.
Well,
Okay,
I wanted to kind of
that's true.
I wanted to keep it kind of on a similar vibe, at least today. And I was thinking about this. I actually thought about this because of the second segment we're going to do, which is more just fun, is more the ish part. But I wanted to talk about something with you that some people, if they talk about it, would probably feel immense insecurity. I don't know if you feel this way or have when you were younger, but I think I'm just going to say it. I want to talk about our bodies. Our bodies. We can talk about our looks overall too.
Got this awkward, gangly body and my long arms.
So why don't we start with that, Weston? Why don't you go and take off your clothes and stand up? Let's give a good examination here.
I don't think I'm doing that.
I was waiting for your reply. You were just staring. I guess you were just processing what you were going to say, but that was so funny.
Well, I was having this vision back to. So the other day, I was actually doing some recording for YouTube, and I was I needed to swap shirts because I have my sort of YouTube uniform of my little Hawaiian shirt. So I'm like, I'm getting all my stuff set up. I'm like, okay, I got to go change shirts, and my closet's right there, right next to my setup, right? So I've got all my lights on and everything. So I go over and I'm changing shirts, and I happen to look over at my second monitor where like the recording is, the software or whatever, and you can't see me, but you could see my silhouette of me changing up against the green screen. And I just had this funny moment of like, imagine that as like a weird stripping like stream moment. Like, okay, someone like donates money. It's like, all right, I'm gonna go change clothes, and then you like walk over to the closet, you're like seductively changing clothes with the silhouette.
Yeah, just like I hear like old burlesque music. You're just like dancing. Oh, that'd be funny.
And obviously you wouldn't be able to see anything. It's just the silhouette. But I just that's what I was thinking of. I'm like, that would have been funny. I'm not gonna do it for two reasons. One, I think it's probably against terms of service on any streaming platform.
Sure,
probably, maybe. I don't know. Nude hot tub streams were a thing on Twitch, so maybe not on Twitch. But anyway.
Well,
and then the other thing, green screen, it's technically chroma keyed out by the time I'm live, so you wouldn't be able to see it anyway.
I have a similar situation I've experienced from time to time where sometimes I'm wearing the shirt I'm going to wear for a medley already that day. Other times I'm not, and I'm going to change into a particular shirt. And the days that I change into a shirt, I usually have it ready to go here in the studio. And I have like a camera rolling, and I have a monitor that shows what the camera's showing. And sometimes I'll be kind of like, I don't mean to, but I'll be like partially in the shot, but like it's not recording. It's just on and ready to record. But I'll look at myself like this weird side version of me without a shirt on. And I think, that's what I look like that? And it looks really strange. It's like, because you never look at yourself that way. Because when you look at yourself, you're in a mirror straight on, you can turn. But when I look at like the far back angle of my right shoulder without a shirt on is really odd. And I don't like it just because I don't feel like it's me. Like it's not even more as much as how it looks as it is you just don't see it, so it looks abnormal to you, I guess. But I've experienced that too, but I don't ever go to the sexy striptease thing. I think it was more, the shadow makes sense, but when you see your actual body, I don't think this would be a sexy striptease. I think this looks like somebody trying to, I don't know, shove a hot dog in a bag or something. I don't know.
I was going to say, where are we shoving this hot dog? Where I don't know.
I was trying to make it sound like, well, that's a bad example, of like you're trying to just shove something into it, like a, forget it. I'm trying to describe something I can't explain properly.
You've lost me. You've buried a lead. I'm elsewhere now.
Yeah, forget it. You're trying to shove a balloon in into
Go
like
on.
something that's too tight, so the balloon's just hanging over the tight thing. That's how I feel. I can't think of a good example.
Balloon hanging over a tight thing. You got it.
There's the episode title.
Floppy balloon just hanging.
I guess that's a great place to start. You kind of get how I feel about it. I look at myself and I go,
Well, I mean, that's because you didn't have your setup prepared for nude shots. This is everyone's OnlyFans advice. I have a very successful OnlyFans account. So what you need to know, you have to have the proper lighting. And when you're as pale as Alex and I, and if you have a bunch of white lights and then you get naked, you just glow. You're just like a ghost. It's like, oh my God, ghost.
Angles are important too. Like
Angles, you got to find your good side, left side, right side.
That's true, because those angles of ourselves, like the one I'm talking about, it's part of it's unflattering, just solely because of the angle that it is. When they say the camera adds 10 pounds, I believe it. I think it does add 10 pounds.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe, but also like, lighting and shadows and angle, and then depending on what you're doing with like how, like your stature, like how you, like if you're sitting, standing, etc. So if you slouch, obviously you're going to be more flabby, whatever. So you get those creases. If you kind of like lean back, you can kind of stretch. There's a system. Like it's, it's almost like there's a whole industry out there for what's it called, modeling.
It's almost, exactly.
It's almost as if there's a science behind it, probably.
Weston, let's not beat around the bush. I want to ask you, how do you feel about your body? I'll ask it that simply. How do you feel about your body?
That's the one I've got.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Well, or like I'll put it, the most candid way to put it is that I'm comfortable in my body. I'm comfortable in my skin. I'm a 30-year-old man. I've lived with it for this long, and the awkward stages are probably behind us. I've seen what teenage Weston looks like, and he just looks gangly and like awkward. But that's every teenager ever. So I don't know. I'm comfortable in my own skin. That's totally fine. There are things I would change if I put forth if I could convince myself to put forth the effort. I'd like to work out a little bit more, get a little bit more fit. I'm not flabby. But, there's a few things I'd like to chisel out given the opportunity. But
like
for the most part.
What would you want to chisel out?
I would like to, bulk up the shoulder region a little bit more. I'd like to, flatten out the gut a little bit. I used to be in sports, all right? And I used to run. It's not that I'm flabby, but, I wouldn't mind chiseling that out a little bit extra. You put a little, and then when I say shoulders, put a little bit more meat on the shoulders and arms a little bit. Really hit those push-ups. My legs are fine. My legs are beautiful. My legs are my best feature.
That's so funny because I feel the same way about me. Many times. Well, not many times, but I've gotten a couple compliments before. Not many, but it's like, you have some nice legs. And I'm like, I don't do a single thing to these legs, right? But I do look at my upper body and I go, yeah, I'd like a little more defined chest specifically. Like you kind of talked about that too, kind of up here.
Yeah.
I would like to be flatter here too. I guess same thing as you, just a little broader, nothing crazy. And I know some people, because you'll be like in an environment with friends or family or whatever, and they'll look at an old picture and go, God, I wish I looked like that again, right? But I look back at me, kind of like you said, I've seen pictures of me when I was 15, and I go, I looked too skinny. Like, too skinny. Like, I don't want to look like that again. But also, I was still growing and developing as a young man, I guess. But but I will say this. I do look back at me when I was 22. Right? And my weight has not fluctuated very much, but I have gotten a little extra, just kind of right in the tummy area, in the gut area. And I do look back at me at 22, 23 and go, oh my gosh, then I was a little more concerned with my appearance than I am these days. And I remember then being kind of self-conscious about how my stomach looked then when I wore a shirt. And I think, oh my God, you were flat as a wall. You know, I guess part of it is kind of like perspective and also just your overall security in your own body. I could say at 22, I don't know about you, but like teenage years and then into like my early 20s, I still thought about my appearance a lot in that way where I wasn't fully, I guess happy is the wrong word, but like I wouldn't say that I'm not perfectly happy with my body now because there's things I would like to change, but I'm also comfortable in it, like you said. There's a difference there, right? Like there's things I'd want to change, but I don't look at myself and think I am just a slob or something. You know, I don't feel that way. I'm comfortable, but I would like to change some things. Then though, I will say I would look at myself and go like, it really upsets me that I don't look like this. You know, did you ever go through that phase when you were a teenager or early 20s, or is that never really a concern for you?
Not really. Not for my body. I think my face.
Okay.
For the most part. So like body-wise, I was athletic enough. I was active enough. I was in some sports and stuff. I just didn't like working out. So like I'd like to be a little bit more fit, but I don't like working out. I don't like hitting the gym. There's nothing about the gym that is appealing to me. There's not a thing about it.
Same.
So body-wise, you know, it's always like, oh yeah, I'd like to be more fit, but I'm not out of shape as it is. So I'm comfortable. It's fine. My face, for sure. I think everybody, you know, it's one of those things you look in the mirror and you can see all the imperfections that no one else is paying attention to, that kind of thing.
Right.
Especially when you're younger and your face is still, you're developing your shape, the shape of your face a little bit. And like maybe if you've got chubby cheeks or skinny cheeks and you're trying to figure that out. And then for me, a lot of it has actually been like what I was doing with my facial hair. I was trying to figure out facial hair stuff growing up, and I still wear a beard. I used to wear a much like longer beard, which I look back on and I don't know what I was thinking, but like, I look back on it and that was certainly an era. Even now, it's annoying. If I get that angle just right, you can tell that because half my beard grows faster than the other half. I've got this like growth right down here that's irritating me. And I need to get that cleaned up. Half my beard grows slightly faster than the other half. But anyway, so they're dealing with that. But for the most part, my face, I'm really happy with now. The top of my hair, my hairline. I've looked at photos of me from my early 20s to now, and I'm like, oh, you can just see the hairline going further and further back. And I'm like, should I take some medication for that or something? Like, you know, so one of them, I don't know, the Rogaine or the Hims or all the ones that you see advertised on YouTube or whatever. I'm like, do I care? How much do I care? I've had that conversation with myself. Like, how much do I care about my head hair? I don't know.
Well, so how much do you care about your head hair? Would that be something you would maybe look into?
Well, it's enough that I've looked into out of curiosity, but I'm also curious about a grand many subjects. So, like, does that say anything? I don't know. But not enough to pull the trigger on any of it. So clearly,
I get it.
I cared enough to be curious, not enough to do anything. But
you mentioned the face. This is the interesting thing. For me, the face was never a concern for me. The body was, and for a while, not to a great degree, but to a degree enough to bring it up here. But my face, I always kind of looked in the mirror. We all have the days, though, the days where we look in the mirror. Maybe even today, we'll still have those days where it's like, yeah, not really feeling it today, but got to go to work, whatever. But then, like, especially like kind of in those high school, or sorry, I was about to go back to the body thing. The face, I always was kind of fine with the face that I had. There were some imperfections and things that I wish I could change. Like, you do kind of hyperfixate on those things, sure. And like you said, nobody's looking at that because everyone's worrying about their own face. So there's no time for them to look at the things in your face that nobody else sees. But that was never really a thing for me. I was always pretty pleased with how my face looked. It was just kind of the other parts of my body that made me feel uncomfortable. And this actually ties back, funny enough, to, for me, my jeans journey with the body. So if you remember the jeans journey.
I was early on the show. That was early.
Yep. So throwback. A lot of my discomfort with how my body looked wasn't so much about my body as it was what clothes I wore and how I wore them. As I grew older and bought new clothes and really took time to kind of figure out what I like how it looks on me. Now it's, not a problem at all anymore. And I like how I look in my clothes. So that was a big part of it too. But yeah, face. No, have you heard that stat though about, maybe it's an old just like myth or whatever you want to call it, but people say like you view yourself in the mirror as better looking than other people perceive you. Have you heard that? It's something like that. Like you view yourself. I've heard this numerous times over the years. Like in general, we view ourselves as a little better looking than most people would view us. And I remember thinking at the time, are you sure it's not the opposite?
Yeah.
Right. But that's a thing. I want to see if I can look that up really quick.
I could obviously, if you had a little bit of a narcissistic lean to it, or a little bit of a self-centered lean, something where you're a little self-absorbed, I could see that. And then, you see yourself as gorgeous in the mirror more so than others. But I think on average, most people probably obsess over their imperfections more and see themselves as uglier than they are. I would have thought.
That's what I would have thought too. But there's articles I'm looking up here, and a lot of them were talking about what I just said about kind of the opposite. But like this particular article is, you are less beautiful than you think, and then it goes through all this stuff. And I wonder if a part of it is, let's play that angle. Is it that we get so used to? It's kind of similar to, they say like in a marriage or in a long-term relationship, you grow more and more attracted over the years to the person you're with. And that's not just purely a physical or superficial thing, right? That's also due to the fact that you're really growing together emotionally, spiritually, even, in many ways, right? Intellectually. And I wonder if it's similar, right? Using that angle in terms of, we don't look at anyone else more than ourselves. Well, that's actually not true. But we get very used to seeing ourselves every day in the mirror. And we really have so I wonder if there's kind of like a bias there just from always seeing ourselves in all matters of light. And maybe that's why we would see ourselves as more beautiful than other people would perceive us. I don't know.
I wonder how this demographic could be broke down, one, between the sexes. So if you present masculine or if you present feminine, if that alters your, on average, how attractive you see yourself. And then I wonder how that also splits down laterally between people that are conventionally attractive by another person's metric, and then what that person believes of themselves versus someone who's unconventionally attractive or otherwise unattractive. What I'm trying to say is, a conventionally attractive person will look in the mirror and say, oh yeah, I'm attractive, but they're used to their own body. So actually, on average, people see them as more attractive than they see themselves. Whereas someone who's unattractive or maybe unconventionally attractive will look in the mirror and be like, I'm not, who cares? I'm nothing. And then someone else is actually like, yeah, no, you're ugly as crap. You're ugly as sin.
Sure.
Like, you're just on the fence of like, I'm okay, but I'm nothing crazy. And then people are like, no, you ugly. So like,
right.
Is there a sliding scale, not just between masculine and feminine, but also between conventional and otherwise attractiveness on that scale? So I wonder if that can be broken down in a demographic in some way. But
I'd be curious to see more into it through those angles, because I'd say, without doing any sort of studies, I would assume that when it comes to the insecurity part of it, like I don't like how I look, and other people may think they look good. In my head, that goes more feminine, more on the female side. Like, in my head, that's what I just kind of imagine. I feel like, in general, and this is just me talking, right? I'm not saying there's any proof behind this, but I feel like women are less, like, happy with how they look. Or they maybe think about it more than like maybe a man would. No, that's very generalized, but that's kind of where my immediate thought goes to.
I think women, at least in the Western world, as I'm familiar with in the United States, women have the most expectation into how they look.
True.
Like, there's so many different styles of dress for so many different occasions. And then there's makeup. That's a whole realm that masculine presenting people and men don't typically even consider. So there's so many more elements into what goes into a feminine look. And so there's so much more you could conceivably get wrong or criticize or at least be critical over. So that's why I said I'm curious between that male, female, masculine, feminine dichotomy, how much of that is skewed one way or the other, where it's like, well, do women think that they're a certain attractiveness and on average they're less? Or is it that they think they're a certain attractiveness and on average it's more? But men, like masculine presenting, it's like, oh yeah, I think I'm pretty hot stuff, and then on average people are like, they're not though, you're not. So,
right.
And because men don't obsess over all these extra elements that women on average do, that's what's skewing the average. I don't know. I'd be curious.
I'd be curious too. You mentioned conventional and unconventional. It's funny because, like, and I'm curious how you would answer this, because once again, conventional and like non-conventional can mean so many things to so many different people. But I find myself, based on my criteria for what's considered conventional beauty versus non-conventional beauty or unconventional beauty, I find myself being more attracted. Like, I'm thinking of just unconventional beauty I'm more attracted to is what I'm trying to say. So somebody who has the attributes that are a little... Of course, then again, I'm thinking, here's what I'm thinking of somebody in particular. I'm thinking of, what's her name? She's a celebrity, blonde. Her eyes are kind of farther apart. Joy. Anna Taylor-Joy? Eva Taylor-Joy? Anna Taylor-Joy?
I will start trying to Google. I don't know my celebrities. What'd you even say? Anna Taylor.
It's Anya
Joy.
Taylor-Joy. Anya. Okay.
Anya.
So I think she is very pretty, but she's got a very unique look.
Oh yeah, she's got a skin kind of I'm looking at a straight on headshot of her right now. She's got a kind of skinny face a little bit.
And like her eyes are kind of, I would say, compared to what I would consider to be conventionally beautiful, pretty far apart.
Well, I don't know if that's because her face is so skinny, her eyes look apart, and her eyes are technically normal. She looks like she's got a skinny face. I mean, I'm not saying that disparagingly, but yeah, I think I see what you're talking about though.
But like, I think she's pretty.
Cheekbones.
But I don't know. She does have very but I don't know if
cheekbones. Yeah.
But I was also going to tell you too. It's like conventional beauty, at least in the celebrity world, seems to change over time. You know, like what's considered to be the most attractive or whatever, even down sometimes to specific areas of the body, not even just face. So it just based on like what these celebrities wear and what body parts things, you know, that they highlight and all that stuff. It's interesting. But anyway, that, for example, I consider to be unconventional, but maybe it's considered conventional now. I don't know. But would you... Oh, go ahead.
I think your Anya Taylor-Joy probably falls, and I'm not an expert in this field, so I may be a little wrong here, but conventionally speaking, what's attractive in women, feminine looks, attractive feminine looks usually tend to be more rounded looks, whereas men tend to be more angular. So these are just averages. Whereas, so like when you look at Anya Taylor-Joy, I think she may be closer to the realm of conventionally attractive in high fashion, which tends to have the opposite effect. They have a lot of very thin women with a lot of angular looks to basically be a clothes hanger for clothes. Essentially, that's the idea.
Right.
But when you talk about conventional feminine beauty, you're not actually usually looking at angular. You're usually looking at rounded features, something that's a little bit more motherly, not overly.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Like not overly round, but somewhere where like I don't know how to like compare this again, like a pear as opposed to an orange, I guess is kind of the idea. So you're looking for something that is round but isn't. And that's just shapes. That's shapes, because then we can get into face, you can get into jaws, you can get into shoulders and busts, and you know what I'm trying to get to though?
I do know, because you talk about motherly, and that kind of makes sense. It all kind of really boils back down to very core, kind of biological things almost. You know, you think about like if you think about hips, right? For example, you know, hips. Especially like kind of wider hips. What does that represent if you go through that angle? That represents birth, carrying a child. That represent, you know, like stuff like that. Honestly, you could say the same thing for breasts. You could say the same thing So the motherly aspect is really interesting, and I think that does play a role conventionally. It makes sense. It's biological that people would be, or men, whatever, whoever, would be drawn to those particular attributes.
Of course,
just due to their purpose,
There's definitely room for some nuance there, because if you
Yeah.
start saying motherly, if people start thinking of their own mothers, and that could be any slew of qualities for sure. I think it's hard to pin down what the conventional part of conventional beauty means. There's probably a list of, I just Googled conventional feminine beauty, and I got an AI overview, because that's something that Google does now.
I saw
And they
that,
say
yeah.
long flowing hair, clear skin, narrow waist, little or no body or facial hair, being thin and tall. See, I think this is the stuff they're like labeling is more, again, like model, like a high fashion model. So I think that
I think a little more, for lack of a better term, when I think of conventional, we're on the same page, because I think a little
Yeah.
more meat on the bones. I'm like, I think of like the 1950s, like,
you get the
like
Marilyn
actresses.
Monroe look, right?
Right, and because she was not, she was of course in shape, but like she wasn't like super skinny like Anya Taylor-Joy was, or is.
The heroin chic wasn't a thing yet.
Right. So, actually, I kind of want to look her up too, really quick, and kind of see, so we have a reference.
Marilyn Monroe. And of course, right now we're just talking feminine beauty. It's
Right.
masculine. I think that there's a little less of a distinction between the two, where just kind of typically fit in shape, broad-shouldered, tall.
Yeah, as men, what's our perspective on that? Like, I guess it would be what you said. Kind of broad-shouldered. Kind of like you said, tall seems to be a common one. Just tall.
Yeah.
Period. Like, there's always
But not
been
lanky.
this
Athletic and
difference.
fit. Yeah.
Right, exactly. For some reason, this is a common conversation I have with men still now, which is preferences of height. Like, I know a lot of guys who kind of require, like, I need to be taller than my spouse or than my partner. There seems to be a lot of, I don't know what the word would be, but pride there, maybe, whatever it may be. And a lot of girls prefer that too, or women. A lot of women prefer that too, like a man that's taller. Not necessary, but it's something that seems to be, maybe because it's common, and that's why people prefer it.
Right. On average, that's more likely anyway. So you can look at that as being a natural thing to find attractive, because if you're a guy, a taller woman starts to approach looking more masculine, and on average,
Yeah.
people are heterosexual. And then if you're a woman, a guy who's shorter is approaching a feminine look. That's not strictly true, but you could look at it from that angle. You could look at it from some other angles that revolve around, if it's men liking short women can stem from insecurity, where it's like, well, the taller the woman, the more powerful
Yeah.
the woman, and that's a threat to my power, and that threatens my insecurity. And then the other way around for women isn't actually insecurity in themselves, but insecurity in the environment. So a taller, more powerful looking man can protect me from the environment. So those can stem from those places as well. It's a little complicated, but it is common.
I'm glad you said the word natural, because I think that's a very common thing that we're drawn to. And it kind of goes back to the woman thing again. When you talk about the hips, naturally women have wider hips than men and skinnier waists. That's natural, right? I go back to the breasts. Women have breasts that men don't have, like in general, like those are also naturally occurring things, right? We have different body shapes. So it also would make sense that in general, this isn't speaking for everybody, but in general, it would make sense to find that as attractive, right? Because it's been natural, been that way for so long, right? I mean,
I guess so. Yeah, and
I like
that's where,
natural. I like that.
Natural, and because I hesitate to say normal, because it's not like I'm looking at a spreadsheet statistic of like women's and men's sizes and shapes. So like, and to a certain extent, like everyone's body is natural, because unless you've done some kind of modification or some surgery or something, that you're born the way you are and you grew the way you grew. So it's not like people that aren't conventionally attractive are unnatural. Let's be clear. But at the same time, if we're trying to pick out what conventional means, I think that's what we're talking about. And so when we talk about conventional attraction, for example, like I'm not as broad as someone who's conventionally attractive would need to be.
Right.
I don't have the brow. It's hard to tell because I have no hairline. I don't have sexy hair. That's the other. I don't have thick, luscious hair. So like, I don't have the brow for the sexy look or whatever. So like, I've got a couple features that are missing the conventional attraction. That doesn't mean I'm unattractive. Just the convention isn't there. I don't know what your take is on your own body. For tall, I think I've got that. I'm right around the 6 foot, and guys on average are like 5'7" or something worldwide. So I'm taller than the average. So I hit the tall just fine. That works. I don't feel tall, which is hilarious because like you just feel like you're in your own body. You never feel tall unless you're like obscenely tall, like 8 feet
exactly.
tall.
I know. Yeah, I think with me, it's kind of similar. I mean, I want to know what the American standard is because I know worldwide it's like 5'7". That makes sense, but I'm curious what the American standard is because I bet you it's more.
I think it was like 5'8" or 9 average.
Really?
Male height U.S. Yeah, it wasn't much more.
That surprises me.
Roughly 5'9" on average in the U.S. for men.
Isn't that crazy? But yet I would alongside you consider the tall, not a number in my head, but to be part of conventional. But when I think of tall, I think of like someone who's like over 6 feet, 6'1", 6'2", or more. I'm 5'10". A younger version of myself would have said I'm 5'10" and a half, but I'm 5'10". and I mean, I'm okay with it. The height's never been a problem for me. Once again, for me, it was really just more kind of the gut area, especially when I was younger and stuff, and more the body and how it looked in the clothes I wore. I kind of had a specific thing with the clothes. So, but here's the final thing I want to ask you, because then we're going to switch over to our other segment.
Oh, sure.
Overall, face, body, just your overall how you look, period, right?
Yeah.
Nope, don't take out the personality, just superficially.
I'm a plank of wood, no personality.
No, what is your number? What do you rate yourself? 1 to 10.
12. Be jealous.
Give me a real answer.
13. It's
okay.
I was undershooting it. I'm gorgeous. Be jealous.
You heard it here. He's a 13 out of 10, everybody.
You're darn right. I don't know, like, if I had to put down an honest number, like, I don't know, 7. I'm like, I don't think I'm unattractive. Okay. So, like, if just to put some context to the scale of 1 to 10, right? So 10 is the most attractive. 1 is like a monster, right? So
right.
5 is squarely in the middle. Anything below 5, you're unattractive. Above 5, you're attractive. Right. And 5 is just kind of like, leans both ways. You got unattractive, you got attractive qualities that like just squarely sit you in the middle. I think I'm above a 5 in attractiveness. I've had dates. I've seen people. I've never had anyone repel from the way I look. So I don't think I'm ugly.
Yeah.
I also don't think I'm a 10 in conventional attractiveness. So I don't know, between 6, 7, 8, right? I'll just put myself squarely at a 7. It's kind of like a video game standard. Like when a game's good but not great, that's 7.
Yeah. 7. You gave
good.
A great explanation, which helps, but 7 is always like, of course you said 7, because 7 is such the safe number.
It's the safe number.
But in all fairness, I was thinking, for me, see, this is, I always go to halves. I can't help it, right? But like, I'm stuck between 6.5 and 7.
Sure.
But we're close to the same area about how I feel about myself as the entire package. Because you're right. If from 1 to 10, 5 and below, I do consider myself above the middle, but not by much, right? I think I think there are plenty, at least from my own perception and my perspective of conventional attractiveness, like in a male. I see what that is, and I don't have a lot of that, right? So I think, okay, but I also don't think I look bad. I don't think that, once again, just kind of like you said, I'm kind of repeating you. Like, I don't think anyone's repulsed by me.
You know what this means, though? Is that if on average people think you're uglier than you think, we're just both a couple of 5s.
I know. I think that right there, folks, is a great way to end this segment. Weston and Alex are a couple of 5s.
Just a couple of 5s.
On a bad
Together,
day, I'm a
we're
4.5. Hey, You put Weston and I together, if we face swap each other, or whatever that app used to be called, where you like put their faces together, we'd be a frickin' 10. Actually, it'd be probably a nightmare. I'd be curious. We should do that, see what that looks like. Do one of those face swap apps.
We know each other too well. It would just be uncanny.
I know, you're right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for hanging out with us while we talked about that. Don't go away, though. Don't go away, because we're actually going to be back with another segment where we're still going to be talking about looks, but in a totally different way. Weston, you and I are going to be doing a tournament bracket of video game consoles.
Oh.
Based on how
they
sexy they are.
Ooh, sexy consoles, baby.
It's happening. Yep, basically on how they look. How sexy do these consoles look? Anyway, we're going to put them head to head. We'll be right back after the break. Profoundish is brought to you in part by Alex Duquette Medleys. I make theme song medleys, which is where I take a bunch of theme songs and mash them up into one bite-sized song. From Nickelodeon to Adult Swim, I cover it all. So, if you want to take a fun nostalgic trip, search my name, Alex Duquette, on YouTube, or go to alexduquette.net.
Profoundish is brought to you in part by Magic Man Mo, a gaming YouTube channel run by me. We stream and we do variety Let's Plays. Check out a short stream compilation to see if it's something that you're going to be into. It's a lot of fun. I made it, so I know. That's Magic Man Mo on YouTube.
Under the sea.
Under the sea.
Down where it's wetter.
Hold on, Weston. We can sing Under the Sea, but I got to welcome people back first.
Okay.
So, Weston's going to sing Under the Sea, but here we are. We're back. Under the sea. Now we can sing. Geez, I haven't seen Little Mermaid in a long time.
Me neither.
Did you ever see the new one?
No. When you say the new one, you do mean the live action one?
Yes.
I'm not interested in the live action Disney movies for any number of reasons that you could possibly imagine. I think that they're cash grabs and awful. So
there's one exception to the rule for me, and it was only because I have a crush on her. Talk about beautiful, and that is Emma. She played Belle.
Hermione.
What's her last name?
Granger. Emma Watson.
Emma Watson.
I was about to say Emma Stone. I'm like, no, that's from Easy A.
But Emma Watson's always been one of my celebrity crushes, and I love Beauty and the Beast, so I did give that one a shot, and it was okay. I just watched it for her. So
I watched that one too. It was okay as well, but like obviously, if you want to nitpick, you can nitpick. But if you're just there, if you're there to just enjoy the movie for what it is, it has enjoyable moments. It's just kind of one of those. It's like the only reason I'm watching this is because I saw the animated one and I was curious about this. But honestly, between the two, the animated is the classic. You know, it's the OG.
It's a classic.
Great music. Curious if I were to ask a bunch of kids that like grew up with the live actions and then never saw the animated, if they love the live action. I would be kind of curious since they grew up with it. But
right, how much in that case? Because the thing about the live action is that there was like a song that was added. You know, there was like different things in there too that were like
did some different stuff
from the animated. So I would be curious how much the growing up factor, the nostalgia plays a role in because in general. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. Let's do this thing. We're going to be We're going to be putting consoles. This is randomly seated. We're going to put them head to head. And we're under the criteria of how sexy they are, how nice the consoles look. We're not considering the games. We're not considering the hardware, just the physical attributes of the hardware itself. That's how we're doing this. Weston, do you have any questions?
No questions. I'm glad you didn't do video game controllers. We would have been fighting for too long.
GameCube controller, sexiest of them all. Fight me. Here we go.
It's the DualShock family, baby.
No, you just like it better. Okay, anyway. Let's do it. We're already going to... This is going to be hard, too, I think, I bet. Let's do it. Let's go use matchup mode so it kind of comes up nice and big.
Oh,
Xbox One versus the PSP. Weston, which one do you think is more attractive?
Oh, between... It is going to be kind of difficult for me to put aside my own console biases and just go for pure aesthetic and how attractive they are. I'm going to go with the PSP, though. It's a cute little guy you put in your hand. It's got those round little curves to it, and it's not just a giant brick. So
however, there is something to be said. No, I'm actually going to vote for PSP myself. but there is something to be said for the I would say the sleekness. I know it's just a brick, kind of like you said, but I do appreciate the half design where like half of it's got like the ventilation, the other half is kind of like a matte finish. I do kind of like that. It's not just a brick. There's more going on there. It's interesting. But I'm going to agree with you. I do like the curvature, and I like the personality of the PSP better. So I'll vote for that as well.
The Xbox One does have that asymmetric look to it. So when you're talking about like unconventional attractiveness, I get it. It stands out. It's the quirky girl in the crowd, right? Where you're like, oh, you've caught my attention. But I think between the two, I'm going PSP.
Plus, I like the personality. So, yeah, PSP. It skipped one, but we'll go back up to it in a second, I guess. Okay, so we got the 3DS, or to be specific, the 3DS XL and the Game Boy Color.
I hate that the Game Boy Color that they chose is the transparent one because everyone was obsessed with that thing, and I thought it was gross.
It was such a 90s thing, though. Like, so many things in the 90s were, like, had translucent versions of themselves.
I get why they're cool, because it's like, oh, I can see the stuff inside, right? That's so cool. I get that, but I don't think it makes for a very sleek look.
Also, the purple. I don't like it would have been. I think it would have looked cooler if it were clear, but like it just makes it look almost dirty to me. I don't know, something about it. I think I think I'm going to vote for 3DS on the looks. Once again, it's got that kind of symmetry on the top and the bottom. I like how it curves on the edges. I do like the little accent color splash on the like X, Y, B, and A buttons too. I think that blue is so much more flattering than that purple.
To be fair too, though, of the Game Boy Colors, it's not like they were all translucent like that, and it's not that all the 3DSs were blue. So if you were good to go like outside of just what's possible outside of these two pictures that we have here, I do think that the Game Boy Color does have a good look. It's definitely like when we were talking about the brick with the Xbox before, it's definitely like a tiny little thin brick that you put in your hand, but it does have that sort of elegance that you might get from a cell phone, whereas the 3DS does have that hinge in the middle, which I've always thought was kind of garish. Okay. And it stands out. Between the two, though, it is difficult to say which one is prettier. I think with the versatility with the 3DS, because you can close it and you do get that elegance that you would get like from the Game Boy Color, I'll go 3DS as well.
I do. I think it's a solid vote. When it's closed, I've always liked how 3DS looks too. It's very unassuming, and then you open it up, and you kind of got this whole thing going on. It's kind of mysterious. I like it. All right, there's that. We have the PS4. That looks like what? Is that the Pro one or the Slim specifically? And then maybe. I know it's not the OG PS4.
No, it looks a little different from. Yeah, right.
I think it's that middle one, right? They had the Pro, then they had the Slim. I think this is the Slim.
Could be.
So that's the PS4. We'll just say PS4. And then we have the Atari 2600, which I recently got my hands on one the other day. Or not the other day. I got it as a Christmas gift, actually. So it's been a little while, but I'm excited to hook that up and play it. But anyway, this is like totally different, like, design philosophy. I mean, this was like 40-year difference. So I'm curious what you think. Which one is prettier? Because these are from completely different eras.
Well, so the Atari just screams granddaddy. Like, it's just, like I had an alarm clock that had this same aesthetic when I was a kid because it was old. Yeah, like the wood. And it's just, when I look at the Atari, I'm not thinking sexy. I'm not thinking sleek, maybe in its day, but that's kind of what I mean. In its day, it probably was real slick. It's like Granddad. Maybe he was a suave, dapper old man back in his 20s and 30s, but now, not so much.
Granddad's not hot anymore. Yeah.
So between the two,
but I will say, I think I'm leaning the same direction as you, but I do want to give the 2600 props because I do think there is a charm to that, and maybe it's because of its age, but I do want to just appreciate its charm. I love the wood finish stuff. It does look like, just from a physical, even just like a color standpoint, that's got a little more going on. The PlayStation has a very unassuming look, which isn't a bad thing, right? I praise the 3DS for the same thing, right, when it's closed. But I do just want to kind of, I guess, give that 2600 what it's doing. I think I do like the charm of kind of the wood finish. I think that gives it kind of a, what's the word? There's a word I'm trying to think of. It's not sophisticated. That is the wrong word, but it's maybe distinguished. I like I think that's the word I'll use. It's got a very distinguished look with that. And that kind of, a lot of times distinguished can kind of go with age, right? So I don't know. I feel like the Atari 2600 here, I like how it looks. I like the wood. I feel like that's kind of like maybe the Atari 2600 10 years ago was the Silver Fox. Now it's a little too old to be, and it's past Silver Fox, which is why now I would definitely pick PS4.
I think it would be fun in a hypothetical to take the Atari and give it a new, fresh, sort of metallic casing and see if that would change its appearance. Because right now with the wood finish, I can't get over the old man of it. But like if you gave the casing a different finish, I wonder if it would actually, because of the shape. I'm wondering how much the shape would be more attractive than the brick that is the PS4, just because it is a different shape. I always got the vibe that the Atari looked like some sort of music equipment.
Yeah.
That's
well,
the
back
vibe
then
I
it makes
got.
sense too, right? Because that was speaking of design philosophy, that was kind of the idea back then for these early consoles, was to look much more like other traditional entertainment equipment you'd keep in your house versus an entertainment just game machine. So, But yeah, PS4 sounds like that's the winner. So we'll throw that in there. Okay, so this I believe is the TurboGrafx. If I know my old consoles, versus the GameCube.
I think this was
for
kind of
me,
close.
Here's the thing. I like how the GameCube looks, but the purple throws me off. And, I feel like I would say it'd be different. I think the color is hard for me. And I know that, once again, kind of using what you said before, GameCubes came in different colors. I don't know if the TurboGrafx did. I don't know enough about it. I guess I'll let you take it away because I'm struggling here.
I will say the GameCube I like a lot because it's an actual cube. So it's not just a brick. It's a cube. Like there's something cute about that where it's just trying to be as small of a form factor as possible. And then it's got the quirky little handle on the back that like no one ever used, but you could.
But it was there. And I do like the little protrusion in the front too, like how it's not completely flat in the front. There's that little, it curves out a little bit.
Yeah, it's got a little roundedness to it, despite being a cube. The TurboGrafx looks great as well, side by side. Like they both have a similar sort of finish or casing design or philosophy. It's just kind of the shape that it boils down to, and the TurboGrafx has more of an elongated look. But for the symmetry of it, I kind of have to lean GameCube with the 4 controller slots, the ports, whereas the TurboGrafx doesn't quite have that. It's more leaning heavily one-sided than the other. So for symmetry, I'm kind of leaning GameCube.
I think I'm leaning GameCube too, and I mainly, for me, I like it because of its own contrasts with itself. So first, you kind of said it with one of them. It's very symmetrical. I like the cube aspect, and it's angular, but it's got that little curve on the back for the handle. It's got the little curve on the front, right? It's a nice accent. And then I also like, I'm not a fan of the purple, but I do like the contrast in color difference, though. I love the front panel and how it's so much brighter than the rest of it. And that kind of pertains to other GameCubes. Like there was a black GameCube, right? So it really kind of popped. There's other colors too. I like that. I feel like it really kind of says what it is. So I like it for its contrastness, as it were. So I vote GameCube too.
She's a cute package with a little round in the booty.
A little round and hey, Weston and I like a good booty. Ooh, okay. So we have the Nintendo 64. This is randomly seated, so this is kind of funny. This is the Nintendo 64 and the Super Nintendo. I think in terms of overall attractiveness, I'm going to say, for me, it's kind of easy. I'm going to say the N64. I like the curve. I think it really is kind of a... Whoever made the casing to the N64 kind of knew what they were wanting to do with it. It's like I like the little legs on the corners. It's got this nice curve on the front. A lot of consoles don't really have a very defined curvature on the top. There's maybe different like layers or different levels, but not just all one. It just, you know what I mean? Very defined curves. I like it.
The Super Nintendo I like a lot. I actually had a Super Nintendo growing up, but the 64, I agree, has something going on where it's got this elegance as like a sphinx, like with the feet and the curvature. It's like like a distinguished sphinx in the desert of all these other consoles. And honestly, I think the 64 has got a little something going on. It's got my attention.
Me too. I'll say one thing about the Super Nintendo. I feel like if the power and the reset buttons were not this weird purple, which is basically the GameCube like purple, or indigo, I guess is the color they say. If maybe this is me just kind of liking simplistic, but if it were all kind of flush, if it were more like the gray of the middle section, which that middle thing's the eject button, if it were the same color as that, I actually would like that better personally. That's just a personal thing. I think the purple in this case, I don't think it works. I think it's just a random addition of like, let's throw color on these things, and I just don't think it works.
I actually disagree a little bit, but let me see if I can change your mind. The purple buttons, the little switches or whatever they are on the Super Nintendo, pick any color you want. I like it for its accent. Now imagine they matched the bottom plate of the console. Like, see where the line separates like the bottom from the top, right?
Yeah.
Now imagine the bottom matches whatever color you have as that accent. Now it's got a little something going on, right? Almost like it's making a face
I would like
or something.
that.
Yeah.
I would like that. I just think
fun.
maybe, and I would still at that point still consider it an accent. So like maybe that's what it's missing. Maybe this is not enough accent. So it's like it's like a half finished idea or something. I like that. That's a good angle. In general, N64. It's a sexy sphinx.
It's a sphinx, a sexy sphinx.
All right, we got the normal DS,
the OG DS
versus the Sega Dreamcast.
You know, the Sega Dreamcast. What a controller! Look at that thing.
Yeah, let's ignore that part.
Yeah, we're not talking about controllers, but how ahead of its time was the Sega Dreamcast for sticking a screen in their controller? No one was doing that.
No one was doing that, and you had these little cartridges you'd put in there, and you could play little mini games on your controller.
The
it was
Wii
crazy.
can eat its heart out, dude.
Right, it's crazy. Yeah, that was one thing people would say when the Wii U came out. It's like the Sega Dreamcast did it 15 years before. You know, it was interesting. For me, between these two, I really like that look of that Dreamcast. I love the off-white. I love
it's still very white. It's not like that sort of almost beige white that you get out of the PlayStation 1, which we haven't talked about yet. Right.
I like the specifically too, like where you put the discs in. I love the outline of that curvature on the top there, the two buttons on the sides. It's got very similar controller ports to the GameCube.
Yeah.
Just flipped upside down. I'm happy with it, and I've always loved the Dreamcast logo, that little squiggly, like kind of reddish orangish kind of color. I like it.
There's something about the Dreamcast where it's not overly sexy, but it's that sort of like, I just like normal chicks sexy. You know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying? I just like normal chicks. That's the Sega Dreamcast right now. I like her.
It's the girl next door.
Whereas
That's
the
what the
DS,
Dreamcast is. It's
there's
the
nothing
girl
wrong
next
with
door.
the DS. We voted for the DS XL or whatever earlier, but like I think between these two, I'm going Dreamcast on this one.
I agree. Okay. Oh God, I don't know what these consoles are. I think the one on the right it's one of the Ataris.
That's one of them.
Trying
It's the
to do
one with the remote control and a dial for the controller. That's one of them. Yeah.
Forgive me, everybody. That one, I think, I'm a little iffy on the. I think it's like the 5200. I think. I could be wrong with that. But this came after the 2600. I do know that. And then over here, I don't even know what this is. I'm sure I've seen it in videos and stuff, but do you know what this is?
That
on the
one,
left?
Is that a Sega something or nah?
I don't think that's a Sega. Sega didn't do like those colored buttons. But If you're watching the video, folks, let us know in the comments if you know. If not, we'll explain how it looks to you, and we'll maybe by it's how it looks, you can figure out what it is yourself. I'm just not sure.
Between the two, it's kind of concerning because it's the one that I don't know what it is probably the more attractive one.
I agree.
The other one looks. The other one does have. I will say it has a cool factor. The 5200, which is I think what it is. It looks like it has. I think so. Maybe. Yeah. Looks like it's a bomb defusal something, or it would come in like a spy kit or something. It looks
either
really
that.
Cool.
I didn't take it that way. I thought it looks cool. Like it looked like at the time, this is what like cutting edge tech looked like. It had that to me. That's what it looks like to me. It's like this looked super freaking cool, cutting edge electronic equipment style in 19 whatever the year it was when the 5200 came out. I don't think it ages well. I actually like the one on the left better. I like that weird, like, if I'm looking at this correctly, it looks like there's a plastic piece that like curves over and you can put your hand underneath. Do you see that?
I don't think you can put I think that's all one solid piece, but yeah, it's like an arch type situation.
Oh, you're right. It looks like
it's
kind of an optical illusion. It looks like there's a dip in the middle and then there's like a piece that hangs over, but you're right. It wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so because otherwise it'd be too thin to carry like a handle. But yeah, it's got this really kind of cool arch, like a little hill type thing with this valley in the front. It's got these nice ridges on the side for where I guess the fans might be. It's got symmetric controller ports, just the two, one on the left, one on the right. A cute little button, cute little power button there in the corner. No second button for the symmetry, but you know, I like it. I like it quite a bit for the sex appeal. I just don't know. I don't know what it is.
The lack of symmetry. What I do like is it's kind of like a what do they call it? Like a beauty mark. You know, that's kind of what that power button is. It's a little beauty mark. I'm voting for it. I'm voting for Mystery Console. That's my vote.
Mystery Console it is. It looks a lot like a Sega something, but I think you're right. I think it might be some other oddball thing. I'm trying to look up pictures.
So I guess we're doing this from one side to the other.
Sure.
Which I guess is okay. Then there's one that we missed. So we're going back to the beginning, or close to the beginning here. I don't know how this is exactly working on this website, but we got the 3DS versus the PS4. We're kind of running short on time, so we'll kind of go through these kind of quick since we already have talked about these ones. What do you think out of these two?
PS4, I don't know, big, sleek, in your face. You know.
Oh God, I don't know if I agree.
The 3DS is cute. It fits in your hand or whatever. It's got a little flap or something. But like, I don't know.
Cute, you're right. I like the sleekness of the PS4, and I did say sexy at the beginning here. Cute's different than sexy. So, you know, cute can play a part.
Cute, sexy, attractive. I'm not, whatever metric we're going by here.
I'm kind of, for me, each word's a little different. I'll agree with you on the PS4. I'm fine with that. I like that. I like that kind of look. All right. Ooh, N64 and the GameCube.
You know,
God, I'm curious what you're gonna say, but I think my vote on these two is the N64.
I think I'm gonna go N64 as well. There's a lot I like about the cubeness of the GameCube, but that sexy Sphinx, I gotta put my points behind sexy Sphinx.
I'm with you on the sexy Sphinx, man. All right, we got Mystery Console and we got the Dreamcast.
Oh, this was kind of hard.
It is, but I'm drawn towards the lighter color of the Dreamcast. I think it makes it stand out more against other consoles. It has that alone gives it a more unique look. Just especially that particular shade.
I like the shape. I like the disc tray shape. I like it a lot. And of course, I've got a little bit of nostalgia for me because it reminds me a little bit of the PS1. So there's something of a familiarity to it as well. I think I'd lean the Dreamcast as well.
All right. That's it. Boom. We're there. All right. Why are we... Are you cool if I exit out of this and we don't see the pictures as big?
That's fine.
Like,
whatever works.
I want to go to the other side, and I don't think it's going to... And we skipped one here for some reason. So here we've got the PS3, and that's the Sega Nomad. If I go to the matchup mode again, that's gonna take me back to that. So I know they're kind of harder to see, but I can tell just from these smaller images that I would prefer the PS3.
The PS3 has so much going on for it. It's rounded, it's sleek, like it's all the one panel. I don't know. It's a pretty console to just sit there and just be shiny.
Yeah.
It's a shiny console. I like it a lot.
And it doesn't have curvature. It is curvature. Like the whole thing is just completely curved over. You know, I like that. Versus the Nomad, which has like a ton of buttons. It's kind of totally different philosophy of design again because there's so many buttons everywhere. And no, granted, it's a different style of machine, but I'm voting PS3.
I'm voting PS3. The handheld has a lot going against it because it's got a lot less to work with for form factor, but the PS3 is a sexy console.
Let's
Now, between the PS3 and the PSP, since we didn't get the chance to match those up.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Because it skipped that. I'm kind of thinking between those two. Again, handhelds have a lot less to work with in terms of how design, but I think it's a strong matchup. I'm leaning still.
I think so too.
I'm still leaning towards maybe the PS3 though.
I'm thinking the PS3 too.
The PS3 is big. It was a heavy console in its day, but I think that just made it really it was powerful. It made it seem powerful.
I like it. Oh, God. I mean, it was a chunker, especially that original one. It was powerful.
But also, you say chunker because it also wasn't a chunky console because it was just so not. It didn't have any weird,
here's
goofy,
the thing.
Shapes. It wasn't boxy, so it wasn't chunky, but it was just big.
I would argue the original one was chunky still, though. It was still curvature because this one's like the second or third iteration of it, which I think is just sexy as hell. But that first one, man. I guess it was never boxy.
Yeah, it was never boxy.
But that first one,
it wasn't chunky. It had a little more of an
it was thick though, man.
Piece around the side, but she was powerful.
That was that one is the most sought after and most rare PS3 to get, which is one that I've been looking for a good deal for a long time.
Well, okay. I had one, but it doesn't work, so we got rid of it.
OG? OG one?
Oh yeah.
Oh man. If you still had that, I'd buy it off you, man.
I don't. So,
well, never mind. So we're gonna go and finish off this side, then we'll get to the next side really quick. So we got PS3 and PS4.
Between the two, I'm still leaning PS3. PS3 just felt it had a lot more character than the 4. The 4 lost some of her character.
I totally agree. PS3 it is. Boom. All right. Oh man, this is a toughie for me. We got the 64, and then we have the Dreamcast.
The sexy Sphinx, and then the dreamy...
And the girl next door.
And the girl next door. Oh, my gosh. Well, when you put it like that...
I know. Once again, it's totally different.
I feel so wrong for wanting the girl next door. I feel so wrong.
I get it. I totally get it. Gosh.
There's a lot going for the 64, though. It's still where they've got the controller ports. It's got the little feet. It's got all the round curvature to it. I mean, and if you imagined it was white or the Dreamcast was black, if you try to match the colors, what has the sexiest form factor, the sexiest shape?
You know what? The N64. If the N64 were the white color, it would look just as sexy. If the Dreamcast were like that charcoal gray, or that black color, it would just almost fall in line with some other consoles,
yeah.
I think of the Sega Saturn or something. It's just just a square box then. For me, a big part of, I think, the design of the Dreamcast that I like really is that color choice. That N64, I think, just that body. Man,
that body, though. She's a temptress. We'll go 64. She's a temptress.
All right. So this is for making it into the finals on the left side here. We got PS3 versus the N64. Which one is more attractive?
Oh, man. I like the PS3 a lot, but Sexy Sphinx has so much character.
I know. I agree. I totally agree. Totally agree. I love those legs. It's got to go.
She's got nice legs. She's got nice feet.
She's got legs and she knows how to use them. All right. We're back on track with the things here. We'll kind of zoom along here. So here we have another telephone device. I have no idea what... I think Oh wait, is that the Intellivision? I think.
Maybe I'll try
Look
to
up
take a look
Intellivision.
here.
These are before our time, long before our time.
That is the Intellivision. Well
Okay.
spotted.
Yes. Well, I try to pride myself on being the retro guy, so I got to get my consoles right. So we got the Intellivision, and then we have, of course, the classic PS1 or the PlayStation by its actual name. So
if the hear me out.
the Intellivision, I gotta say it first off. The Intellivision, no, that's a granddad.
Yeah.
That is granddad.
Yeah.
Because the wood finish, but also it doesn't have the sleek black. It's got like this off-white beige. That is granddad bathing in the sun. I don't want to see that. Now, I will say this. I'm not a huge fan of the look. I like the color, but not the look of the PlayStation. I like it. It's got a look to it, but it's not my favorite either, but I would pick that way over the Intellivision.
I'm saying this. My vote's the PlayStation 1. The Intellivision just isn't sexy. I just can't get past it. It is grandpappy for sure. But moving forward, maybe you're not thrilled about the PlayStation 1. But if the Sega Dreamcast was the girl next door, you cannot tell me that the PlayStation 1 is not the boy next door.
He is the boy next door. He is.
You cannot tell me.
Sold. Sold. All right, we got. That's hilarious, man. There's our episode title. The PlayStation is the boy next door. I might actually do that. Don't tempt me. We have the original Xbox and the Game Boy Advance. This is interesting.
The original Xbox is a suitcase.
It literally is a suitcase. Well, God, its controller was a suitcase too. I know what the Xbox was trying to do.
Oh yeah.
And I think what it was trying to do, it was doing well, but I don't think it's attractive. I think it's more like, pseudo-futuristic. Like it's trying to be like sci-fi futuristic, but that doesn't appeal to me in like in a visual way, like in an attractive way.
It is powerful. I think the Xbox is attractive in a masculine sense. Like if you and I were a panel of two women and we were playing Smash or Pass right now, I think the Xbox would end up being a Smash over the Game Boy Advance, right?
That is an element we haven't really talked about yet, is that we are kind of looking more from the angle of two. Yeah, you're right. We're usually looking for.
You can't argue that the Xbox is imposing, powerful. It is because it's a box, but it's got that giant X on it.
Yeah.
It knows what it is. It's like I'm imagining a greaser. The Xbox is the greaser in a jacket.
Yeah, and I like that. Okay, and you mentioned power too. You know what? Some people are attracted to power.
Yeah,
that's a thing. But we see both angles. But how do we feel? How do you feel? Are you attracted to power, Weston?
Well, that's a whole nother question. No, I like a good bit of power. Right, I like a good bit of power. I like the power dynamic there. I think at the end of the day, between these two, the Game Boy Advance, as much as I like the system, a handheld, and I didn't have an Xbox, putting my personal bias aside, of course, for form factor, is the Game Boy Advance sexy? Is it though? Because the Xbox has that power look, which can be sexy.
Okay.
But is the Game Boy Advance sexy? Is it?
If I'm looking at it objectively and or kind of putting myself in the shoes of somebody who maybe is more into the strong, masculine, or power, I see what you're saying with the Xbox. And yeah, when I think of the Game Boy Advance, it's so funny because I'm almost looking at it the wrong way in my head. I just realized because I'm thinking if you held it though, like you rest your fingers on the L and R buttons on the top there,
fits in that palm of your hand.
But that's almost more like I've got the power there.
Right.
When the Xbox is going to take me away, right? The Xbox is going to have its way with me.
Take me away.
So, and that's hot. That's sexy.
Throw me over your shoulders. Take me away.
Right. Carry me up to the bedroom and have your way with me. I'm going to, you know what? Xbox.
Okay.
You sold me on it. You sold me on the
Sold.
Xbox. It was. Oh, this is interesting.
The Wii U
So we have
the PS2.
We have PlayStation's most successful console of all time and Nintendo's least successful console of all time. for the most part, laying right in front of each other. This is funny. In terms of looks, it's also very different, right?
Yeah.
The Wii U is it's got the curve, it's got the glossy finish, and the PS2 is very hard, angular, and matte finish. Like, everything about it is kind of opposites. That's interesting.
When we were talking about beauty before, right? Between the two, the Wii U is very curvy, kind of small. It's that conventional feminine attractiveness. But the PS2's got those angles, and we know how successful the PS2 was. It's the high fashion model attractiveness, right? She's got that hip bone sticking out off the side, whatever is going on over there where the power button is. She kind of like got those angular, that bony structure.
Yeah, I'm not a fan,
don't
though.
think of a skeleton. I just mean like you can. Oh, you know what? Maybe you should think of a skeleton because you can see all those ridges. You could see the PS2's ribs actually, if you think about it.
That's a little too skinny for me. I actually don't like the ribs. I don't like the ribs. I actually really like the form factor of the Slim. I think if it were a Slim, it might be a different story, but I don't like the ribs. Honestly, I might like this better, even because it's got that weird form factor kind of coming off at the side there. If I didn't see the ribs and it were actually more kind of just flat and even simpler, I might actually like it more in this particular case because of the overall shape of it being still pretty unique. You know, kind of comes off at the end over at the side there. But in this case, it's almost like trying to say a little too much. It's like, hey, I have a weird shape, but also you can see my ribs. And you got some USB, plug it in me. You know, when the thing about the Wii U that I like, not only is it kind of curvy, it's got that kind of glossy finish, but also it's got two pieces. You got a lot to play with here.
I will say,
you know,
I'm personally choosing to try to ignore the actual handheld part of the Wii U because to me, it feels like that's like comparing the controller. Because then there's the
I have
Wii
to say
U,
this,
like,
though.
console part. You know what I mean?
I will say this, though. You can't think of it that way because the console does not run without the gamepad, and vice versa. They have to be together in order for it to work.
Well, try playing a PS2 game without a controller.
No, what I'm saying is like that's not the same thing because like one doesn't power the other.
Spiritually, what you're trying to say, but
you can't turn on a Wii U and do anything without that gamepad. That gamepad is a part of the system. Like there's
Sure.
actual components in there that are required. You know what I mean? I know what you're saying with the controller thing, but I don't think we should cut that one out because it's not just a traditional controller. I don't know. Maybe that's just my opinion, but I don't know. I like curvy. I'm sorry. I don't like that. The ribs throw it off for me.
You don't have to be sorry. I was leaning the Wii U as well. I was just trying to make a statement that I'm not really considering the controller part of the Wii U. I'm thinking like the actual console base or whatever you want to call it. It's sleek. It's simple. It's got a lot going for it too. It reminds me a little bit of like a DVD player or something. It reminds me of something. I'm not sure what, but I think it's got a lot going for it.
The console itself, yeah.
And the PS2 is an oddball. Look, I love the PS2, best console of all time. But in terms of sexiness, I think we're gonna go Wii U, right?
Yeah, I'll go Wii U. I just don't like those ribs. As soon as you said ribs, you ruined it for me. All right. Do you know what these two are?
That is the.
Let's test your knowledge here.
Well, that looks like. Oh man, I don't. It's a Sega something, right? The one on the left. What is that?
The left is the Saturn.
That is the Saturn. Okay, I was gonna say that's a Sega something. Sega Saturn. The one on the right looks like a Jaguar.
So the one on the right is the Master System.
Master System. I gotta look up Jaguar.
So
now.
the Jaguar is actually pretty different. It's got. I don't think that's on here. The Jaguar has by far the worst controller of all time.
Oh yeah, the Jaguar
You should
does
look at the
look a lot
Jaguar
different.
controller.
I was just wrong. Color scheme, like it's got that orange-red color or whatever. So maybe I was just thinking the colors. Gotcha.
I don't like that kind of boxy look of the Master System. I kind of prefer, I think, the Saturn. It's simpler, but it's once again, I kind of like the unassuming.
I kind of like the weird angles of the Master System. It reminds me of the wings of a plane or a jet or something a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Well, if you can sell me on this, I'm willing to switch. But right now, I'm kind of sitting in Saturn.
It is kind of hard to sell you on it because the top, where all like the graphic is, kind of looks like a warning or like an advisory or like a giant weird garish sticker. The shape
Maybe it's
is
a bad boy.
interesting though. It's a bad boy.
Like you don't want to get close to me, baby. You know.
I do think though that the Saturn is like the maybe the goth older sister of the girl next door from the,
which could
from
still
the
be attractive.
Dreamcast, right?
Right. Yeah, I like that. I can
emo.
follow that.
We could go
A little
with that.
mysterious. I think I like that. I like that approach here. All right, we got the Sega CD, and then we have the 360. I was looking at the other things here. Then we have the Xbox 360.
Yeah, we have.
I can't remember. Sega did a lot of weird
Genesis
stuff.
and an Xbox 360.
Oh, sorry. I see that slot on the top because you can put the Sega CD thing in there. This is a different model of the Genesis. They had like 6 different models, so that's why I thought it was the CD. Because that slot up there is where you put the Sega CD thing, and then you can put other things in there too. It's weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is my least favorite design of the Sega Genesis, and then we have the 360. Out of these two designs, I'm a fan of the simple. I love that curvy look at that 360, man. It looks a little more kind of timeless to me.
And standing on its edge, it's trying to do that pear-shaped thing. It's kind of skinny in the waist, right? It's got that weird curve in the middle.
Yeah. Does that mean you like the 362 then?
I'll go 360 over the Genesis. The Genesis has some kind of like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what it was going for.
It looks like a home phone. Like it looks like a
Yeah.
It looked like you could put a home phone on the left side here, and then like or like a voice machine. Like an answering machine or something.
Like an
it's
answering
weird.
machine. It's got that weird dial in the bottom left, or not dial, but that switch or whatever.
Right.
It's not an ugly console, but it has that weird feel. It looks like something that would belong on the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. Like it looks like it's some like relic picked up from somewhere.
I like that. I would say too the ventilation on the top of the Xbox. It almost looks like it's got like hair or something like. Those are like it's little hair follicles, and it could just have beautiful long hair going down the side.
But it doesn't
like
have any beautiful long hair,
360.
so that's a buzz cut. I hate to break it to you, but she's got a buzz cut.
Hey, nothing wrong with the buzz cut. We got the Game Gear and we got the Wii.
I actually had a Game Gear briefly.
Did you?
Yeah.
I have not known anyone to own a Sega Game Gear, so that's pretty cool.
My mom used to own a resale shop, and it came through the shop, so my brother and I would play on it a little bit.
That's cool. All right, well, totally different machines here. What's your take?
The Wii has a lot going for it that the 360 had, just without the curve in the middle. So it's a lot more angular.
Right.
Maybe it's like the masculine version, basically, of a 360, and it kind of it sits in a port a little bit. The Game Gear, definitely a fun sort of shape for all of the handhelds, but it is definitely like it's a fun shape. But I don't know how it was ever meant to be held in the hand.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm leaning on the Wii here a little bit. I think between these two, we're looking at two very like 4 out of 10s, in my opinion.
Oh, in overall looks, yes. I agree. I think I want to add this to the Wii that's in its favor. I feel like I see like its support there at the bottom, that gray.
Yeah.
I see that as
It reminds me of Foundation.
Exactly. But like I think Foundation is a good thing, right? The Wii is safe. The Wii may not be the prettiest thing in the world, but it's going to take care of you. And it's going to hold you up because it's got its own crap together, you know what I mean?
It's going to judge my Wii fitness age is what it's going to do.
That's a thing. We'll pick the Wii there. I agree.
What are these? The links?
See, this is what I was telling you. So like there's so this is the Sega Genesis. There's another Sega thing at the bottom. And then there's another thing that you can put in the top slot here. And it can just be a monster if you want it to be. So this is another iteration of the Sega Genesis. That might actually be the Sega CD part. And then there's something else that goes at the top there. But it's like a beefy Sega Genesis with extra crap. And then we got the Atari Lynx on the other side. The Atari's try at the handheld market.
The Genesis looks like it's got a VHS player underneath, and that's like boggling my brain.
It's weird. I know. You should look up weird Sega Genesis like editions. They did so many. They threw everything at the wall then before they put out the Saturn. And then we got the Lynx. Out of these two, The Lynx goes back to my idea of, I think it was the, I can't remember which one, but it's kind of granddad again. Oh, the 5200. It looks like it could have looked cool at that specific time. It doesn't feel granddad now, but it does feel like a relic of the past, even more so than like the weird Genesis thing over there. I don't know. What do you think?
Man, these are two just kind of ugly consoles.
They are both ugly.
These are not attractive consoles. The Genesis, the Genesis is reminding me of that old like robot puppy you could get as a toy in like 2000 and 2001. Like the face.
Is it the thing on the side?
The thing on the side looks like a floppy
little
ear.
ears.
Yeah, it looks like that. So for that reason alone, I'm going with the Genesis.
I was going to go for that too. I hate how the Lynx looks. There's
like,
so much space around that D-pad.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
So all that space, the buttons on the right are so like the top and bottom buttons are so far from each other, and those tiny buttons. What? I don't understand the Lynx design at all.
I'm totally with you. Last seed here. We've got the PS Vita and the original Nintendo, the NES.
Ooh.
I didn't realize how I didn't know the Vita was that round, like on the sides.
It's a very round boy. It's actually kind of funny. I if you put the PSP versus the Vita, I actually still prefer the PSP design over the Vita.
I would say.
But between the PS Vita and the NES, I'm thinking Vita myself, because the NES just really blocky, boxy. That's when we were talking chunky earlier. Now, the NES, that's a chunk.
I agree. I totally agree. I think the NES is very ugly, actually. So, you should look up a much prettier version of the NES. You should look up the Top Loader. That is a much prettier version. It's like their second iteration, the Top Loader NES.
I've seen that.
Much prettier. But yeah, out of these two, Vita. I'll definitely pick Vita.
I will say the Top Loader NES looks kind of like a receipt paper machine. If you ever it's not a sexy console either, but it's not a chunk, but it is something else entirely.
I would rather date the Top Loader than the original. That's all I'm saying. If I had to pick. Okay. So we got we got Mr. Power, we got Mr. Business, we got the Xbox over here versus the PlayStation.
We got the boy next door, and we've got the greaser with the jacket.
Yep. The boy next door versus the greaser.
In terms of design, they both have some different ridging going on the top. Granted, for the PlayStation 1, that's the disc tray, is where that's coming from. Stuff in the front, the symmetric buttons, but also the Xbox has its button smack in the middle. Actually, really, in terms of the design, very close, very similar. I would say the Xbox has some rib action going on now that we've talked about the PS2. The Xbox weirdly has some rib action. Maybe that's the spiked, the spiked neck choker or whatever of the greaser look.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I like that. Yep. Yeah. Once again, when you point out the ribs, I just don't like it. I don't know. For me personally, I'd pick the boy next door. I'm afraid of the greaser. The boy next door.
I'll go boy next door. These are very close to me, but I'll go PlayStation.
I agree. I don't think one is way better, way more attractive than the other. All right. We've got the Sega Saturn and the Wii U. The Wii U is actually, I was about to say, never mind. They both have a pretty, just kind of standard look at the consoles themselves.
Yeah. The only thing that gives the Wii U the edge is if you're considering the actual tablet portion of it as well. Because then obviously it's got a lot more going on than the... You know what?
It's also got the glossy.
Yeah.
I like the glossy.
I hate how much the Wii U cheats by having a handheld and the console. It's like we're comparing the Saturn to the twins. You know what I mean?
It's odd.
The
I know.
Wii U is like the twins.
Machine.
It's a duo package.
Right, I know. But I will say, if you take that out and you just do look at the actual just machine that you put the discs in, I mean, I like the gloss over the matte, I think. Just in general, just aesthetic. I'm not saying practically, because practically, it's a nightmare, but with fingerprints and stuff. But I like that, and I do like the simplicity. You know, I like the edge on the top. It curves on the sides. You know, it's a lot more rigid over on the Saturn side.
She's simple, but kind of getting towards. It's a toss up for me. I'll lean Wii U with you.
I think I like that. The Saturn's fine, but I feel like the Saturn versus almost anything else, I think the Saturn would still probably not make it far because I don't know. For me, at the Saturn, and I know you can say the same thing about the Wii U. I know you could, but it just looks like every other console. And I know that's not true, but I feel that way, and I can't get that out of my head.
You and I both know
it just doesn't have a distinct look.
The Saturn wasn't going to be the sexiest console, so it's not going to win anyway. And probably the Wii U neither, but we'll see where we land on here. Now, this is tricky.
Oh, this is where you said we got the male version, like the masculine version of the...
Yeah, of the 360, and then the 360 is the feminine version of the Wii here. Like, they're very similar in design. I guess
for those of you listening, we didn't flat out say it. Yeah, the 360 versus the Wii here.
The 360 versus the Wii. The Wii's got that angled backward, kind of like leaning back, kind of chilled vibe to it. And I know you mentioned the hair aspect of the 360, but honestly, it's got too much of a really old PC tower vibe to me. I guess between these two, I'm kind of weirdly more into the angularness of the Wii.
I think out of the two, yes, and I don't know why I'm so stuck on gloss right now. I'm feeling the gloss, but that's also got the it's got that shine to it, that shimmer, which I also like. So, yeah, you know what? I'll go with Wii too. I like it. I like those angles too. All right, I think this is the last one. Then we have a couple more. Then we're almost to the finals here.
Almost to the finals here between this the giant puppy dog Genesis Sega Genesis thing monster really and the PS Vita.
Yeah, it's a monster. For me, it's easy. It's the Vita still.
It's the Vita. The Vita's the cuter, more attractive console. Whatever's going on with the Sega Genesis is its own thing.
It is. All right. This is a weird one. We got the Wii U versus the PS1. Semifinals here. This one is going to, for me, this is going to lean towards the unconventional attractiveness a little bit. Like, I'm going to go with Boy Next Door PlayStation 1 over the Wii U's pretty, but I don't think there's much going on behind the eyes. You know what I mean? I do like the character of the PS1. I do like its character, right? There's something to be said about that versus the Wii U. If that gamepad wasn't there, you would not be able to distinguish that machine from anything.
No.
So for that reason alone, I will join you on the PlayStation.
Going for the character on that one. It doesn't have that glossy finish I know you like, but there's something about it that's still just attractive.
But that one had character. That one had personality. I totally agree. Ooh, this is an interesting one. We got the Wii versus the Vita.
The Wii versus the Vita. That's hard because we're comparing some very vastly different concepts here.
Yeah.
Question, does the Vita have too much going on in the front?
I was about to talk about simplicity again, because obviously we're not looking at the Wii controller, just the Wii itself. There is quite a bit going on, I feel like. And we both have kind of had a theme of we do seem to kind of, for the most part, there's been exceptions, but kind of like the more unassuming, kind of simplistic approach, whether it be in its shape or in its amount of buttons or whatever, right? There is a lot going on with that Vita. It's not like the Nomad. The Nomad was terrible, but this isn't much better than the Sega Nomad. For that reason, I'd probably say the Wii. I also like the white color. I like the brightness of it. Seems a little safer, a little less edgy. But also secure. So I think my vote's Wii, I think.
I'm going to go Wii on this one just because I think the Vita seems too busy. Like, over-accessorized. Like, probably, like, high maintenance. And I'm like, okay.
I think you're right. I like that. All right. So this is going into the semifinals. This winner will face the N64 for the sexiest console. We have the PlayStation versus the Wii.
Between these two,
are you going to pick Boy Next Door again?
You know, I'm leaning Boy Next Door. The PlayStation 1 just does something right in its symmetry and its down to earthness, quite literally laying flat over that of the Wii. there's something I don't know, but the Wii has that. This is where I'm going to go back to the Foundation thing. The Wii just looks like it's a concrete pillar that belongs in a parking garage somewhere. You know?
Once again, I like the personality of the PlayStation, but I do like that. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Because neither one is
This is tough
busier than the other. They're both relatively simple.
Mm-hmm. For me, I struggle, though, with that. You know what? I'm trying to not contradict myself and remember what I've said before, because one thing I liked the Dreamcast for was its outline of where you put the disc in, and that's actually kind of similar to the PlayStation here.
Oh yeah, they're very. That's why that's like the girl and the boy next to it. They're actually really similar in concept.
Yeah.
And if you took that same shade of white from the Sega Dreamcast and moved it over to the PlayStation 1, because I'm getting a sense that you really like bright consoles. So like if you had that, I think you'd probably be leaning the PlayStation a little bit. Tell me I'm wrong.
You know what? I'll do the PlayStation. I'll meet you there. This wasn't as easy, but I like what you had to say about it. I do think... See, I think these are both attractive consoles.
Yeah, I think
kind of in their own ways.
Because they're both attractive for similar reasons. That's what makes this so tricky. They're very similar.
Right.
Just one's flat, like one's lying down and flat. One's kind of like standing up and tall.
Hey, listen. The PlayStation's lying down. It's already it's one step closer. You know what I'm saying?
It's primed and ready to roll, baby.
It's ready to roll. All right, let's do it. Here we go. Now, this is so interesting because this is the same frickin' generation and everything. But this isn't about the consoles. It's about how they look. We got the N64 versus the PlayStation 1, the PlayStation, for the most attractive console. Now, we got to put our biases aside. Here, I think... the N64 is so frickin' sexy, man. Any color, it would look good. And if I'm going back to the color, I'm sorry. If the PlayStation was that black color with the same design, I think it'd be a little less interesting. I'm not saying it would be uninteresting or unappealing or repulsive, but I'm just drawn to the simple curvature of the N64. It's not overly curved, right? I like the legs. I just like it more. So unless you can really sell me on this PlayStation, or maybe you agree with me, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm leaning right now. This is hard.
Obviously,
but honestly, not as hard for me as the Wii and the PlayStation before.
My bias for the consoles themselves playing them, obviously, wants to come out strong here. Like, for sure, I have to separate in my brain. I'm like, because honestly, the controller on the 64 is one of my least favorite of all time. So it's like, well, if you stuck the DualShock controller over on the 64, actually, I'd be, even just as a console, it actually kind of
matches.
I'd be really excited. Well. Yeah. So ignoring the controllers because I have no part. I do like the 64 a lot. It is a sexy console there, man.
And it's kind of the perfect blend of everything. It's a sexy Sphinx. It's not overly busy. I think it would work in a lot of different colors. I like the slots for the controllers. There's some personality there. It doesn't look like a machine like some of the other ones. I just think it does so many things right, and I just want to hold it.
I will say, because the 64 is a top loader, right? It takes a cartridge.
Yeah.
Because the PlayStation's a CD one, so you click a little button and the top opens. So that depends. Do we like a little little flappy disc tray, or
more maneuverability there? Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I will say if you really want to put something that thing below the slot is where you put extra memory, and that you can flip that open. So I mean, just to kind of, it's not obviously not the same, but I did want to throw that out there. I think just overall, from my personal preferences of how they look, this is just how they look because I love the PlayStation, but I love the look of the N64 more. That's my vote.
You know what? From everything we've said today, and I feel like I often bully my way into getting the winner that I want, and I love the PlayStation 1, but you know what? Sexy Sphinx. It's not even the 64.
Sexy Sphinx.
It's the 64 Sexy Sphinx. I'll take it.
I know, a lot of sus.
We'll go for it.
I think it's a very good final matchup here.
She's got legs.
But yeah. and she knows how to use them.
The sexiest console of all time, ladies and gentlemen, is the Nintendo 64. We have decided.
The Nintendo 64 is the sexiest console of all time.
According to Profoundish.
Weston, according to Profoundish, that went longer than I expected, but it was totally fun. And
I didn't realize how many consoles were in that list. And then you scroll down. I was like, oh no. It kept going.
Yeah, me neither. Well, we'll wrap it up here. Weston, where can people find you on the internet?
WestonHasty.com, my landing page for all the things that I do. Check me out on my gaming channel on YouTube, Magic Man Mo. Buy my book, Smiling for the Sky, on Amazon. You can get it in paperback and Kindle versions. And stay tuned for other things down the road. Say hi to me on Twitter, X at Weston Hasty. Alex, where can we find you?
You can find me. I'm going to direct you to my YouTube channel today. Head to YouTube, type in my name, Alex Duquette, and you can find my medleys. I do medleys of all kinds of different TV shows where I take a bunch of little snippets from theme songs, plug them all into one big song. It's a lot of fun. I recently put out my NBC sitcoms medley. So if you're a fan of those shows, The Office, My Name is Earl, Parks and Rec, 30 Rock, all those. Check those out. I just realized when this comes out, it won't be out quite yet, but it's coming very soon as of the time of this. So definitely check out that medley when it's out. Other than that, that's all. Profoundish. You can find us at the socials at Profoundish Pod. Continue the conversation with us. If you're watching on YouTube, you can do that as well. You can leave a comment below and continue the talk with us there. Any podcast platform you listen on, Spotify, Apple, any of the other places, if you could leave us a review, a like, whatever the thing is, that would be super helpful. Helps the channel grow, or the channel or any other platform that we're on, helps it grow. And also there's usually on Spotify, there's little polls, little things you can answer. Answer those questions, because if you answer those, we'll read them off on the next episode. So that is pretty much it, unless there's anything else, Weston.
That's it. Thank you all so much for listening.
And until next time.
All right.
All right.